Don't let your biggest gift be a burden. Don't let your biggest gift feel like a weight on your shoulders. You know that you're called for more, and you know that you're destined for something different. The path is not going to be the same. So you're a chosen one. And you almost find yourself resenting people that don't see the vision that you can see. But you have to understand that that vision is for you. And the same way that it's a gift, you cannot see it as a burden. Now, for those of you who understand what I'm saying, when you're at a family event, when you're at the barbershop, when you're interacting with people and you're trying to be polite and you're trying to build a sense of rapport, but you just feel something, you feel a level of resistance almost grating at your core, they're not going to see things the way you see it. Let me give you an example. You could be at a family barbecue and you begin to talk about things and the conversation goes in a certain direction. Now, many a time you just let it slide by, but you happen to be brought into the conversation because you're not somebody that will speak unprovoked. You're somebody that's going to speak when someone poses you a question. And not necessarily the issue, but something that occurs with you is that when you speak, you have to tell the truth. And this comes into not letting your vision be a burden, because when you begin to elaborate on things that people cannot see, because they can't see it and because they don't understand and they have limited scope, it's almost like you have a sense of resentment. Now, the problem with this is you're the one that has to bear the burden of the consequences. Because when you go away from that situation and you keep thinking about how they just didn't understand your perspective and you could naturally understand theirs, you're going to be the one that has to live with that. And what that's going to do is it's going to take you out of the frequency that you're vibrating at, and it's going to take you to a lower space, all because they don't see your vision. But the thing is, they're not supposed to see your vision. So when you find yourself, in a barber shop, or you're maybe talking to one of your colleagues at lunch break, and that conversation comes up where you happen to get brought into it, and you just know at your core, because you're a person with integrity, that you cannot lie. And you have this conversation and you engage in it thinking that people have the same heart and open-mindedness and critical thinking as you do, you are going to be disappointed. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be angry and build up that resentment, and then that can cause a strain on the relationships. You just have to understand that your calling is meant for more. You were meant to be different, and that's okay. Because if it was for everyone, your perspective wouldn't be unique, and you wouldn't be able to navigate and traverse situations the way you do, because that vision is meant for you. I find myself, sometimes it could be anywhere. It can be, a lot of the time it's social settings, and a lot of the time the conflicting element of it is it can be around people that you do care for, or you want to have a level of respect for. And what can happen is that level of respect can be tainted because you can see their vision. This is something I find fascinating a lot of the time when I have discussions with people, or people think they're having debates. They're not having a debate with me, it's a discussion. I can see their perspective clearly, but they can't see mine. And the level of frustration, knowing that I can see exactly what they're saying, but they can't see my perspective, it it is almost a burden, and I've had to learn to grow to accept that they just can't see what I can see. But I think the frustrating part, like I said, is that I can see their version of events. And the reason I can see their version of events is because it's usually a narrative that is the mainstream or that's been prescribed. So, of course, I can understand that. For example, growing up in a certain environment, growing up in an environment that was, difficult, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of crime going on, there's a lot of things going on. I can see things through a certain lens because I come from that background. But then I also have the perspective of someone else that would come from a more privileged background. And when it comes to meeting at a point, I'm seeing it from their perspective, the other person's perspective, and even another perspective. But the issue is they only see it through one lens. And carrying the burden as a chosen one of having this vision can really weigh you down. And I think if I had understood this earlier, I'd be able to accept that the vision that I have is different and they just cannot see the alternate perspectives. It's almost like, can you imagine watching a movie, but there's only one camera and there's no different frames? But somebody else is watching a movie. They have access to that camera, but they also have different footage and they can see angles that you can't see. So they're going to believe that the antagonist in the film is someone else, but they can't see the other side of it. But the craziest thing about it is you can see all angles. You can see what they're unable to see. And you have to almost take this as a responsibility rather than a burden, or rather than something that makes you look down upon people. And you have to take this responsibility very nobly, and you have to take this responsibility very seriously. So I really just implore you, when you find yourself in those situations, when you find yourself facing resistance with something you're trying to explain to someone that seems like common sense, and it can be around so many topics. It can be around politics, it can be around religion, it can be around finances. And you know when someone is just so tapped into a certain way of viewing the world. An example, university. For me, university was a quite a challenging time, and it's not for the obvious reasons. For me, I'd naturally progressed through the education system, and it seems like almost a rite of passage for you to then go to university. You know, you get certain grades at GCSEs, you then go on to do your A levels, and the natural next step in the process is for you to go to university. So, seeing this, again, I'm seeing it through my lens, but I'm taking almost an assumption that everyone else that goes through this process is going to have the same vision as me, and they're going to see things the way that I see it. So I'm assuming that naturally, if you've gone through this process, there's going to be a certain level of intelligence. Now, boy, was I surprised when I turned up on, on university campus, ignorant to the fact that a lot of people there are not very intelligent, and the path that they took to get there may have been very different to mine. This was something that was hard to deal with because it's seen as something that is almost glamorized and pedestalized. And then when you get into an environment, you're like, whoa, this isn't even, this isn't what I necessarily expected. It's almost like a contradiction in your mind. And that's where, elements of going through that process could make me resent people that told me that this would be the right thing to do. Because I assume that I'd go here, meet like-minded individuals that share a same level of interest or level of intellect. And I went there and it was almost like the complete opposite in certain areas. Now, had I had the wisdom at the time, I would have understood that my path was different, my calling was different, and that I can't have resentment on people because that is, for some people, esteemed as something positive to do. Now, that's just one example. For you, it could be something different. Again, it could be your perspective on money, or your perspective on saving, or your approach to raising your children that's different with your spouse. And when you can conflict with people, you always just have to remember you've been gifted the vision that they are unable to see. And there is a time and a place for trying to reason with people to allow them to see your perspective. And sometimes you have to understand and have that emotional intelligence to realize they may never see it from your lens, even when you can see the exact angle that they're seeing it through. So I can see why someone would say that education makes sense because I've gone through that process. I can see why someone might be more favorable towards liberal ideologies because I studied sociology at a high level. I studied international relations and sociology. I understand these things at a high level. So when I have a conversation with someone and they've not even studied this at a high level and they believe a certain thing, I should be someone that believes in these things more than anyone. The lens that I see things through, for example, let's just use examples that you can't change. A young black male growing up in Britain, there are certain lenses where I immediately identify and understand where someone would come from. But because I have a different perspective and because my mind has been opened up in a certain way and I've received a certain level of, awareness through research, and some of it could be naturally bestowed upon me, you know, I'm seeing it from different perspectives. And that can be very, very conflicting if you're someone that's logical. But I'm just here to say to you, don't let that sense of, or that weight and responsibility of understanding overwhelm you. Understand what it is, look at the situations and realize, okay, I'm gonna try and enlighten this person, or in certain instances, I'm gonna conserve my energy and I'm gonna invest that same amount of energy into somebody that already sees it through my perspective. Because all you're gonna do is bit by bit drain your energy, and that gives you less of a high frequency to engage in people that already see it the way you see it. So you may as well just take the path of least resistance. When you hit the fork in the road, go down the path where there's people that are already aligned. Position yourself correctly around those people that understand you, because then you can have more depth to your conversations. One thing I realized, you chosen ones, you can only get that level of depth with people that have a level of understanding aligned with you. So when you're trying to convince someone they don't even see your perspective, these are very surface level things. However, when someone already sees it, now you can begin to get a step further. Now you can begin to progress in your own personal development, because you're already aligned at a starting point, and you can begin to uncover the things that are a lot deeper, the things that are really going to make an impact, rather than trying to get somebody to just catch up to the point that you're already at. So if you're already here and someone else is already here, you can both progress forward and ascend at the same level. If you're here and someone else is here, you're going to have to come down to this level to try and get them to come back up. And even if you can't get them to come back up, you may have lost some of your energy in the process. So now you need to then regain it. Whereas if you conserve that energy, they're down here, you leave it, and then you encounter someone that is at the same level, that is where the separation begins. And it's not necessarily separation in a negative way. It's separation that's just going to make you the best person for those around you. So whenever you find yourself in this, I guess you can call it a predicament, assess whether it's worthy of you to lose energy in the process of trying to get someone to just understand a basic fundamental of what you see, or you align yourself with people that already see the vision. This is something that people don't necessarily uncover, and I'd say it's the burden of being a chosen one. The burden is you have the vision to see things others don't see, but you have to use that responsibly. And if people are not able to see your vision, you have to have grace. You have to have an element of grace and patience. And for those that are willing, you can help them sort of transcend what they already see and show them a new way, or show them a different perspective. But if not, it's equally as important to just leave it and take a step away. So don't let your vision be a burden. Accept it with responsibility and believe that you were meant for something different. It was not by mistake. Things don't happen by mistake. You know that you were meant for more. Why would that be by mistake?